Tweeting this out right now.
Yeah, let's go. I love the regular season twist with this, where regular season champion gets all the love. That's gonna be so fun.
Oh yeah. I can't wait to just win the regular season and just lose instantly in the playoffs. That's how it always is.
Right. That's fine. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take $1 million.
I'll take, any way you want. And we are officially live with Best Ball Season 2022. And awesome producer Chris with some killer music bringing us in. I am very, very fun. I am very excited to be here with my buddy Nick Lepri at Notorious Fantasy on Twitter. I am, of course, your host, Matt Savoca at Draftaholic on Twitter. And it really does feel like with the conclusion of the NFL draft and now UnderDog Fantasy dropping an insanely cool season-long tournament, we are officially into the 2022 fantasy season, one of the best times of the year, a time of hope for many teams and many best ball teams, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We are going to be drafting a Best Ball Mania 3 team trying to win $1 million. Nick, I'm going to ask you to do the honors here as we join the contest and we see where we are eventually going to be picking. I don't think it's going to take that long for this contest to fill, but as we wait for the contest to fill, we got some big news today. DeAndre Hopkins has been suspended for multiple games, and now all of a sudden Hollywood Brown's deal going to the Cardinals is huge, and Rondale Moore's going to get some huge run. Whenever you want to bring on the draft camera, Nick, go for it, and we can get into this one. But then I want your take on this Arizona Cardinals situation where, man, we got to adjust the rankings right away here. We're not going to be listening to Hopkins ADP, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that he was suspended. I mean, nothing has even happened. It's May. It's May 2nd, and they're suspending him for PEDs. Kind of weird in my book, right?
I'll tell you what happened. He got tested at some point, either end of the season or the beginning of the off season. And, you know, it's pointless to speculate, right, Nick, where like why he was doing this, how long he was doing this. It just like gets us down a rabbit hole we do not want to be down. Yeah. But at the same time, we saw Hopkins sort of not really find his way onto the field or have trouble staying on the field. I'll say it that way. And certainly not able to be at that high production level we saw throughout his time, especially as a Houston Texans player. Now you got no Hopkins for multiple weeks, 6 weeks. You got no Christian Kirk. He's a Jaguar now. I mean, this is huge. Marquise Brown goes from a run-first offense with Hollywood Brown with Lamar Jackson, and now he's on a pass-first team with a huge amount of opportunity. We can project him for well over 100 targets, 150 theoretically is in his range of outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple of weeks is going to be very interesting to see because we saw in Baltimore that he was really not necessarily an alpha wide receiver, right? But he was the clear number one guy on that team. And he never really showed that true consistency. But maybe this year in Arizona without DeAndre Hopkins for the first bunch of games, I think he is in a very solid situation to just dominate in Arizona. So that's basically my take on him right now. And I'm very excited to see how this is going to impact Zach Ertz and not James Robinson. What's his name?
James Conner,
Running back,
of course.
James Conner.
Signed a big contract in the offseason after a Pro Bowl year, leading the running back position in rushing touchdowns. I don't think we're going to have a very natural regression candidate, but that doesn't mean he isn't walking into a huge amount of opportunity, especially with Chase Edmonds now on your Miami Dolphins. I see we've got the 9th pick there. That's very exciting. And he's probably going to be gone, but we could get my boy. You know who I'm talking about. We could get Austin Eckler. His ADP is around the 5th. I don't think we're going to get there, but no, you never know. Very exciting. I'm going to be using my first run of my 2022 best ball rankings. Obviously, we're going to be listening to the current rankings in ADP and basing some of our decisions off that, but we want to make sure we have our own take on things. We also have a first run, at least of expected usable weeks, expected ceiling weeks. So I might be referencing some of that stuff. That will soon be on the Awesemo website, on the Awesemo best ball side of things. Those tools are in the works. Really excited to show off that stuff in the coming days and weeks. Jonathan Taylor, no surprise, number 1 off the board. And now things get interesting. I like McCaffrey as 102. I know people say he's going to get hurt. I think he has the same amount of injury probability as every bell cow. I want the 27 opportunities a game that I could theoretically project with him, even on a very bad Carolina offense.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty nervous about Christian McCaffrey. I don't think I'd take him at the 102, but I do get what you're saying, right? There's some point when you're sitting at the 104, the 105, and you're like, you know what? I have to just take him. And I think your argument might be that at the 102, you see what this guy can do. I mean, he could be the best running back easily next season. So I'm perfectly fine taking him at the 102. Would I do it most times? No, but I definitely want to get some shares of Christian McCaffrey.
Okay, we might be in this weird spot of the wide receiver uncertain, right? A ton of great wide receivers, but their situations are drastically changed. I have a strong opinion if he's available. I certainly like Devontae Adams. I'm not opposed to Najee Harris. I'm not even opposed to Dalvin Cook, but I'm a little bit lower right now on Deebo Samuel and Tyreek Hill. So I'd be a little bit, those would be well behind. Kelsey is another player that I wouldn't be opposed to at this point as well. Oh, we have one more here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if we're here and Najee Harris is here, that's normally who I would go with. But I also like Devontae Adams. I'm normally not someone. Last year, I went very heavily into trying to push the tight end agenda a lot higher, and it didn't end up working out for me. I didn't really like what I did. So this year, I'm not really looking that way. But if you want to go with Kelsey, we can. Right here, Adams just went before us, so we're not going to be able to get him. So you want to go with either Kelsey or Harris here?
So I actually have Dalvin Cook ahead of Harris, just slightly. With Adams off the board, it's either one of those running backs for me. It's a toss-up. I'll leave it to you. We are on your account after all today.
All right, so we're going to go with Najee Harris here, and it's not to say anything wrong about Dalvin Cook. I actually think Dalvin Cook is one of the better running backs in the NFL. I know during our draft show, I made fun of Dalvin Cook, said that Alexander Madison was better than him, just to get Eric a little bit mad, but Eric's not here this time, so I'm not going to try to do that. But I think that Dalvin Cook is one of those guys that you almost just expect to miss a couple of weeks. When are those weeks going to happen? You never really know. But when he is on the field, he's one of the best running backs in fantasy football. Even if he's not able to get that crazy reception total that a guy like Najee Harris could see, like I wouldn't be surprised if Najee Harris had like 95 receptions next year. Obviously, that's kind of on the high end, but he was number 1 in receptions last year, so it's definitely possible.
The usage is going to be there, right? But part of the reasons his receptions were so high is that Big Ben could not throw deep, and so he had to consistently check down. We also saw Pat Freiermuth, the tight end, see a huge amount of opportunity. The bottom line is I have both players projected for over 12 half PPR fantasy points per game, 2 elite weeks in my simulation-based projections, and about 8.5 to 9 expected usable weeks. They really are very, very similar. We're splitting hairs between the two. Not surprised to see the remaining players off the board here at the end of the first round. We got Deebo Samuel, Joe Mixon, and then Travis Kelce starting us off here. Tyreek Hill goes at the 202. We are one pick away. Ooh, give me Stephon Diggs. Come on.
Yeah, you might have
All
just
over that.
spoken that guy into taking him. That's normally what happens. That's why I kind of try to be quiet a little bit. Yeah, see? Exactly. I saw it coming
Yeah,
from a mile
spoken
away.
into existence. It happens. It happens. Now, I would not be opposed to going running back heavy here. I have a ton of
Mhm.
running backs, so we can just get this over with and then start our stacks that we want to go with. So I'm fine with Kamara. I like Swift. I like Chubb. Those would be my top three options. Javonte Williams far behind because of the return of Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like Kamara, but I'd rather go with DeAndre Swift. So I think that's
Hit
where
it.
we're going to lean here.
Love it.
All right. So we're going to go with DeAndre Swift. Now, DeAndre Swift, also a huge knee biter over there in Detroit. DeAndre Swift was a guy that I was a little bit worried about last year because I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of smoke about Jamal Williams. Like, oh, he's going to see more touches. Then in week one, it was literally true. Jamal Williams was really good. And then after that, I've never been more wrong in my life, right? DeAndre Swift was just so good. Javonte Williams, I agree with you. I'm very concerned about what Javonte Williams is going to do with Melvin Gordon there. I think Melvin Gordon is a very sneaky 10th round pick where I was getting him prior to the draft. Maybe he's going a little bit earlier now. You never really know since he resigned.
Well,
But
with that information, that certainty, you're going to see fantasy players just naturally raise that ADP. That's just kind of how things go.
yeah.
Yeah, just a bunch of running backs coming off the board, not necessarily in great situations, but with a ton of expected usage. Swift and Harris fall into that category. Saquon Barkley is in that category as well. AJ Brown actually went down in my projections after his trade to Philadelphia. Not to say the ceiling isn't there, but again, I'm going to reference that expected elite weeks metric that I've been talking about. When we're comparing Swift, Kamara, and Chubb, they all have the expected usable weeks equal to each other. But in terms of expected elite weeks, Swift is slightly above the rest of the pack.
In chat, Nolan was asking about your favorite roster construction. What do you typically do? I normally go around 5 running backs, 9 receivers, and then 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends. Unless we're talking about super flex, then it's going to be
sure. It's going to be different. Now, there has been some pretty decent sized best ball manias over the last few years, and not sure what's going on with my camera there. We're back. But I will say there have been some really good tools and articles around the industry, but they have been hyper focused on 2020 and 2021 because, well, we have the data for that using UnderDog. I think that's using too small of a sample size to make any definitive conclusions about roster construction. I want to encourage players. Obviously, construction drastically matters, but we are talking about nailing which teams outperform their expectations in a draft where we're beating a ton of players or needing to beat a ton of players. It's about the stack we get, the teams that we are focused around. Right now, in the top 2 rounds, we just grabbed the usage, the most expected opportunity that we could get at the running back position. But if you're asking me 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends, I want to say put that on the back burner a little bit and focus on building out your roster with stacks of teams that can, again, outperform expectations. How do you feel about that, Nick?
Yeah, the amount of tight ends you want to draft also drastically differs from draft to draft because in some drafts you might draft Travis Kelce in the first round or Mark Andrews in the second or third round. And then I'm not looking to get 3 tight ends. But if I wait a while and I'm stuck with tight ends like Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, then I'm not going to be very excited about just having 2 on my team. That's kind of the way I think about it.
Yep, I think that's about right. Now, I'm also not opposed here as we come up on our next pick to maybe going running back and then maybe ditching the position for a significant amount of time. We are definitely entering the presumed running back dead zone. But what I see is Tom Brady's known running back 1 with no Ronald Jones and Cam Akers, who all he did the moment he stepped on the field in the playoffs was get 20 opportunities per game for the Los Angeles Rams. A little concerned about Akers' ability to stay healthy. And we had Fournette off the board. So I do see a pretty significant drop off in tier after it's Akers. And then I'd probably go a different position, say Keenan Allen, who could walk into a huge amount of opportunity as well. I'd leave it up to you there.
Okay, let's go with the 3 running back build because that's pretty atypical to what most people do on UnderDog, right? They're looking to go receiver early. So we'll go Cam Akers here. I actually like David Montgomery slightly more than Cam Akers, but that's mainly because I just feel very confident that the team is going to be far better without Matt Nagy there. It just has to be in my book, right? Like that was just a disaster last year.
Yeah. Oh, man, that one's so tough. I was really high on David Montgomery. Wasn't a bad pick necessarily.
Mhm.
I worry that we would be too locked in to the the NFC North and those games. We're making a huge generalization because obviously those teams play other divisions, but those games are not the types of games I typically want to go for in DFS. And we have to have that kind of mindset when
Yeah.
we're drafting in a big tournament. Pittsburgh plays in the AFC North. Depending on the Deshaun Watson suspension this year, we could have three of the most elite quarterbacks in the league in that division. We're going to get shootouts, and Pittsburgh's play style will be forced to match. In the NFC West, we have a bunch of elite teams, and Cam Akers obviously on the Super Bowl winning Rams. We're going to have some shootouts in there, some really positive plus EV DFS type games, and that's what we're trying to capture here.
Yes.
Another thing we are kind of mentioning here is that it is a little atypical that you're going to go three running backs right off the bat, Nick. We are on the
Yeah.
clock. We're probably going to ditch the running back position for a while. George Kittle really stands out to me at the top here, or even Lamar Jackson. It's probably too early for me for Lamar just because there are, I think, better positional values still available. Kittle is actually the pick for me here.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine doing Kittle. I think that DeAndre Hopkins probably would have been the pick here, if I'm being honest with you, if he wasn't suspended for 6 games, right? Because I think he's in a fine spot, and then you can go back in maybe the 5th round and potentially get his quarterback in Kyler Murray, and you got that nice stack right there. But based upon the suspension, I think George Kittle is a perfectly fine pick. He's a guy that every single year I always get very excited about. The talent there is immense. The biggest thing that sucks about George Kittle in fantasy is that he's so good at blocking, which is actually great for the team, but is bad for his fantasy value because he's not going to be running as many routes.
That's fair. That's fair. When I look at it in terms of positional value, I don't want to overweight the fact that the tight end position is technically a onesie position because, again, the regular season champion of the Best Ball Mania tournament, that's about total points, and they get $1 million even before they hit the playoffs. So we don't need to be hyper focused on positional value, but George Kittle had a stretch of games where he was averaging over 100 yards receiving in a 3-game span. We saw two of the best tight end performances ever at the position by George Kittle last year. And now there was some production ups and downs, but again, we're looking for spike weeks here. I like that Amari Cooper mid 4th round pick. I would have liked that there. Yep, there goes Lamar Jackson. What are you feeling for our next pick here as you look down the board?
Yeah, so we're definitely going to look to fade running back and now definitely tight end as well. Now, quarterback is in an interesting spot because we don't have a single wide receiver, right? So there's no quarterback that we can just draft to stack with our wide receiver. So here, I'd probably be looking towards the wide receiver position. And also shout out to Thomas in the chat. Thank you very much for the donation. We appreciate it.
Thomas Oni or One, thank you so much, man. $5 really helps us out, guys. And this honestly so much fun just going through the tournament, looking through strategies, and it really is a way to put your projections to the test, to the fire, and see what you really feel about these players. Because when you're on the clock and you're thinking about the potential to win or lose a bunch of money, really makes you realize what you really feel about those players.
Yeah, I also think that just doing these drafts as a whole is a superior mock draft strategy compared to doing an actual mock draft because everyone here, they're trying to win the millions of dollars that are on the line here. When you hop on an ESPN draft, that's not really going to tell you too much.
Well said. Well said. We got a bunch of wide receivers here that is the position we would like, but all of their situations are, dare I say, subpar. And I don't want to put too much stress on which one right now, like you said, because we're still 7 picks away. I definitely have 2 favorites in there. Elijah Moore, man, I'm really interested to see what the Jets do with Elijah Moore because I realize that Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore are different players, but I think people are underestimating the amount of draft capital difference between the 2 players. People were really high on Moore, but we're talking about a top 10 receiver pick. If he is anywhere close to what they think he can be, he could just become the alpha in that offense right away.
Yeah, and Nolan asked a great question in the chat about the easiest stacks to kind of find. I think one of the easier ones is getting Tom Brady, Godwin, and Mike Evans all on the same team. as well as just Lamar and Mark Andrews, because you can do that in like the third and fourth round together.
Absolutely. And what's really kind of interesting here is, we're seeing quarterbacks actually fly off the board really, really fast. We're already down at Russell Wilson. We just got to kind of not ignore that per se. That's where the quarterback is being evaluated here. But in terms of looking at projections and usable weeks and elite weeks, we need to take advantage of it and say that we probably can get more elite weeks at our flex positions. Amon-Ra St. Brown is someone I'm not opposed to grabbing right here. Marquise Brown, they're available. Marquise Brown, even before the suspension, was looking like a really solid play. Obviously, stack him up, but hits him or St. Brown for me.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go with the sexy pick here and go with Hollywood Brown. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is in a really interesting situation because I'm not too sure that he's locked and loaded in with Jared Goff. I think if they drafted Ritter, right, they have to be confident that he's going to come in at some point this year. When will that be? I'm not too sure. I don't know how confident you would be in stacking him with Jared Goff or even Ritter in like the last round of the draft, but I think that that's going to be a very interesting play come August when I think we have a little bit more information on how that team's going to be looking, because I highly doubt Jared Goff's going to be getting 17 games, right?
Yeah, I don't know though. Ritter didn't exactly get all the draft capital. I don't think
Oh yeah,
they're
no, I know.
as I don't think they're as ready to pull the plug on Jared Goff as the fantasy football space seems to think right now. We are
What?
just a couple picks away. We're one pick away, and there is a stack theoretically available. We'd have to, maybe worry about Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't want to jinx it here because we still got 15 seconds left, but we could do a little Trey Lance stack with Jordan. Not exactly where I thought going into the draft, but I'm not opposed.
Yeah, or we
He's
could go
available.
with the full Detroit stack. We have Swift. We could get Amon-Ra St. Brown. I didn't even think about that before. Maybe we should have picked him.
Wide receiver and running back obviously have a positive correlation. Just thinking about our DFS fundamentals, I'm not opposed to that. Not like I think the Lions are going to do well, but we're going to need some luck here. Oh, Nick,
Right.
I'm sorry, buddy. I'm leaving it to you. Trey Lance or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
All right, we're going to get spicy here. We're going to go with Trey Lance. I am, like you said, kind of worried about Jimmy Garoppolo, if I'm being honest with you. The fact that he is still there has me a little bit nervous. Now, again, by the time we're in August, maybe, oh, Nick, that was a dumbass opinion you had, right? Obviously, Lance is the guy, blah, blah, blah. But to me, Lance didn't show so much to where it's like, wow, he has to be the starter. But based on everything I've read, I think Lance is the guy. So I will agree with you there. We can go Lance. I think it's definitely the more interesting take on this because if Deebo Samuel is gone, the Lance to Kittle, the points that you could potentially be getting there could be insane.
There's a little bit of upside, a lot of bit of upside in this Lance Kittle. These are the most solidified assets on a roster that seems much more in flux than their playoff performance seems to suggest they should be. I think that's a good way of putting it. And then we got some workhorse backs as well. Also, we've been talking about the upside that we need to capture in these types of tournaments and rushing quarterbacks. I mean, Trey Lance's first start, he played awfully as a passer, and he still walked into 20 fantasy points because he was rushing. He even hurt himself in that game. He hurt his knee, ended up out for a few weeks, still had 20 fantasy points, just showing a little flash of the upside that is there for rushing quarterbacks. It just breaks the game when it works out like that. Brandon Cooks, we're probably not going to get him. And as we were looking at that debate between St. Brown and Trey Lance, he was the only one where he got the money, the opportunity. That guy's going to score fantasy points when he's on the field, no?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that the fact that he's even going in the 7th round, 6th round is a little bit kind of messed up, right? Because this guy could easily be a top 12 guy. He's had so many years in a row of over 1,000 receiving yards. Say what you want about Davis Mills and that situation in Houston, but when he's on the field, he produces. And of course, he gets picked as we're talking about him. But that is a guy that every single year has been criminally underrated because everyone just points to the concussion issue, blah, blah, blah. He's been pretty healthy recently, so I'm not too worried about that.
I agree. And wow, look how far Aaron Rodgers has fallen. The MVP of the NFL, still kind of sitting there. I feel a little annoyed that the quarterback run ended and we kind of hit the tail end of it because I thought it was going to. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, obviously name brands. Jalen Hurts also is a player who, if you just look at his per game value in terms of elite weeks or expected usability looks really, really solid. Here's the thing, though. I still believe that offense won't be afraid to turn to Gardner Minshew if
Mhm.
Hurts cannot support players as good as A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, by the way. Simply put, he's got a short leash, a shorter leash than you want on your 7th-round pick.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel a little bit the opposite way on that because I think they believe in him. Why would you give AJ Brown to someone you didn't believe in, right? Unless, of course, maybe you are right, right? They have Gardner Minshew. They have that backup plan. Gardner Minshew got absolutely destroyed by the NFL. Like he should be a starter in my book. He's really good.
I agree too. Especially he's going to be a Ryan Fitzpatrick type for a long time, even
Yeah.
if he doesn't end up as a starter again, because he takes chances. He wants to
Mhm.
win at all costs. His teammates love him. He's a little bit of a meme, which is fun for us fantasy folks. But truly, Gardner Minshew is the quintessential backup that any competitive team should have. And truly, I think that Jalen Hurts, the draft capital, 2nd round, not elite 1st round talent, was a much better rusher than he was passer last year. I actually think it's huge. It's a huge upside play as well. You know who I want to you know who I want to pick next, right? If he's available, and he is.
It's Brandon Ayuk, of course.
It's absolutely, we're building out a San Francisco stack and a non-Debo San Fran stack. I know they say they don't want to trade him, but think about the upside available here. Uh, if it were a season-long league, we might also look at Jimmy Garoppolo. We absolutely don't want to do that here in this tournament standpoint. We just have to assume we're right with the Trey Lance, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle stack. I like how this is coming together, bud.
Yeah, so do I. And I just realized that when Nolan brought up the stack thing, getting the Detroit stack, if you want to go Swift, Jameson Williams, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then draft Jared Goff later, that also seems very easy, right? We just saw Jameson Williams go in the 7th round. That even seems a little high. I didn't even see him on the screen.
It's hard with these. He's got the draft capital to say that he's a decent pick, but I, I know both the Detroit and San Francisco passing games are in a similar amount of flux, but I think
Mhm.
that San Francisco is going to find themselves in more winning situations. And I know they are also run first. We might just get, creamed by Elijah Mitchell, and he ends up being the number 1 player on that team. But
Yeah.
I think we got to go for the more winning team most likely this year.
Yeah, and one of the picks that's on the screen right now, just real quick, I just want to talk about him. We're not going to take him though. Kenneth Walker seems like he might be the biggest trap I've ever seen inside the 8th round. I think his ADP is going to keep rising, and I think we're going to see a lot more Rashad Penny than people think. So, what are you thinking
One
here?
area I actually think we could consider Tom Brady and be done with the quarterback position. Talk about this level of ceiling. I think Stafford has a similar amount of ceiling. I'm worried about Watson. Brady in my rankings, he's got 6.7 usable weeks and 2 expected elite weeks. We got him right at positional ADP in my latest rankings. I'm fine with it. We did it. Let's do it.
Yeah, we took Tom Brady. I think that that's a good strategy as well. Something that we talked about a little bit earlier, where if you have 2 quarterbacks like Trey Lance and Tom Brady, maybe this is a poor example because Trey Lance is kind of, is he going to be the starter or not? But when you put this heavy draft capital in a best ball draft in quarterback, I'm not thinking that these guys are going to get hurt, right? I'm just going to draft 2 of them. Whereas if I waited later and I have like Daniel Jones, Tua, then I need another quarterback.
Exactly. And think of the value of having a free roster spot. We now have more opportunities to hit on that next Cooper Cup or that late round flyer that absolutely blows up. We literally get another lottery ticket because we have that roster spot open. Theoretically, you want to do that at the tight end position. Although sometimes when you go 2 quarterback, 2 tight end early, you lose so much positional value at the flex position that it becomes a negative EV move. So it's always a balancing act. You got to read the draft board. There goes your trap play, Kenneth Walker. Man, I'd much rather have Cortland Sutton 2 picks earlier, or even Deshaun Watson, who,
Yeah.
when he's going to be on the field, it's going to be elite on that Cleveland team.
Yeah, that was actually the guy who I was going to question you about. How do you feel about drafting Watson right now, where we really have zero idea how long he's going to be suspended? My assumption here is that it's going to be at least 8 games in my book. I think if it's lower than that, I'd be kind of shocked. So, are you confident drafting him in the 8th round, knowing you might miss all those games?
No, I'm not confident.
Neither am
No,
I.
I'm not confident. I think that I will be significantly below the field until I have that information. I think it is too big of an information point to just play into the uncertainty, especially with a team that has traditionally been so run focused and doesn't have a ton of downfield weapons. I think that team could be in a lot of shootouts and win a lot of games and not necessarily have mind-blowing statistics. Deshaun Watson, when he's on the field, is certainly a QB1, but we don't know the number of games he's going to play. It's just too much for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I would be very nervous to draft Watson now in the 8th round when I know that there's just a bunch of other players that I could get. And maybe everyone who drafted him in the 8th round comes out like a bandit, right? He only gets suspended for 4 games and they look like geniuses. But if he gets suspended for maybe 10 games, then the complete opposite. So we're about to be up here at the 9-9. We got 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, 2 receivers, and a tight end. I feel like we're kind of almost locked in to go receiver here, unless you want to just go one more running back and then hit him with the full fade.
I'm on team wide receiver. I actually might be on team keep us at 3 running backs, maybe take like somebody in the teens rounds later. We are up. Robert Woods goes. He was definitely on my list. Yes. Chris Olave, definitely intriguing here. Rondale Moore would actually make us have a little bit of the certainly first 6 weeks Cardinals targets. We'd have that pretty locked up. Olave, he's pretty far below Rondale Moore in my projection. So that would certainly be the pick for me.
We'll
Kirk and Beckham. Yeah.
I like Beckham a lot, but there's a lot of uncertainty with him as well. We don't even know what team he's on. I think that if it was just up to me, I think I would have went with Kadarius Toney, but he's also kind of one of those question mark guys. But I think the Giants offense is bound to improve, right? Him and Kenny Golladay had 0 touchdowns last year. That is bound to go up. And I've seen a lot of talent with Toney. Also, he's good at fighting, if you remember that game up against Dallas. Yeah. So you don't get any points for that, though, on UnderDog, sadly.
You do not. You do not. Not at least in this tournament. You never know what kind of tournaments they're going to be coming up with next. The tight end position is certainly somewhere to consider now. But other than that, we're pretty much drafting mostly receiving upside here for the rest of the draft, which can feel a little boring, but this draft has kind of flown by. We got a really solid foundation. I'm so glad we are not in this Trevor Lawrence, Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields quarterback zone. You guys, I'm going to be releasing some research as over the course of the offseason here, but one big conclusion I have come to is that a lot of these late round quarterbacks where you can traditionally get value in season long leagues, in these best ball tournaments, it's a minus EV move. We do not know Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence trajectory well enough to really think that they can hit.
All right, so we're up now. Tony's still on the board. I really want to get Tony. I really do. I think he's going to stay in New York, and I think that he is just in a very solid spot to perform. He looked like the best wide receiver on that team very clearly last year. They drafted a wide receiver in this draft, which made no sense. Like, I don't know why they drafted him, where they drafted him. It was kind of like where they drafted Tony last year, and everyone was kind of laughing at them, so kind of just a weird spot.
I think it's cut and dry here. If you're going wide receiver, you're going Kadarius Toney. I got him at 3.5 expected usable weeks and looking at like 1 to 2 elite weeks as well. On par with players like Chase Claypool in my book, Christian Kirk, and actually Brandon Ayuk's floor projection is kind of there too as well. So I think there's a ton of upside, but as you would expect in mid-round picks, some uncertainty as well.
Yeah.
Captain Spock agrees. He says he'd take Tony.
Captain Spock loves Tony. So I would be very interested in the Tua stack because I'm a Dolphins fan, obviously, but I think that it's very interesting with Waddle and Tyreek, but that is a very difficult stack to secure since Tyreek Hill still goes so high to a point where it's starting to make me a little bit nervous that he's going that high if I was to draft Tyreek Hill. Now, again, I think he's going to be great. I don't think it takes some genius to throw him the football, right? It doesn't take Patrick Mahomes to get him the ball, but with just how many weapons they have there, they had a lot of weapons in Kansas City too. So maybe this is just the wrong argument to make. But at the beginning of the second round, I kind of find it a little difficult to pull the trigger there on him.
They also spent a lot of money everywhere on offense, but they also brought in significant talent at the running back position. And Mike McDaniels, coming from the San Francisco pedigree, that's a run-first scheme. Not to say they won't utilize Tyreek Hill in the way that you utilize Tyreek Hill. Oh, I love the Sky Moore pick there. Absolutely awesome pick. He could walk into a ton of targets in a great situation. Man, it's like hilarious how different my projections are for Sky Moore around the players that he just went. That you see Christian Watson go as well. We heard reports that Aaron Rodgers immediately reaching out to Christian Watson upon his pick at the second round. He really is one of the highest draft capital wide receivers Rodgers has ever received, maybe the highest, actually. And he could walk into a ton of opportunity with Davante Adams out of the picture in Green Bay.
Hilarious that Jahan Dotson was drafted at pick 16, and he's pick 165 on the ADP. I just wanted to look that up. I thought that was
no one wants to be attached to Carson Wentz dilemma, right?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to be either. I mean, even Terry McLaurin scares me a little bit there with Carson Wentz, but we saw Melvin Gordon come off the board. Edmonds is also an interesting piece, like you said, with just how much they want to run over there with Mike McDaniel. And I think Edmonds is going to be getting probably a decent amount of the touches there. Would you agree with that? Or do you think that's going to be like a 50-50 split share?
How you're asking me to predict how healthy Raheem Mostert is going to be, because he's still the home run hitter on that offense if he's available. Gigantic question mark. Speaking of question marks, there in the first round, or excuse me, the second round, that may come back to one of our draft night discussions. I don't want to jinx it right now, but there is actually a running back that I would be interested in taking. And if we do take it, that would be the absolute very end of our running back room for our first Best Ball Mania tournament. You have an idea who you're thinking of? You can't say it out loud because then we officially jinx it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say it out loud, but I do know who you're talking about. And a running back that is not the guy you're talking about that I have a lot of ownership of on UnderDog from the drafts I've done so far is James Robinson. Now, I know who you want, and that's who I will take here as well.
Oh, the first snipe of the season.
You hate to see it. So we're not going to be going
just rip the Band-Aid off. Okay. All right. We reevaluate.
All right. So we should probably just go receiver then, I think. I don't really want it Noah Fant or Albert O unless you think that's
Albert O is someone that I'd be fine taking just because of the quarterback he's tied to. You know, he's going to have a huge amount of snaps. He actually is someone who I like more than the other wide receivers here. I feel like we can get similar expected usable weeks from Beckham would have been the only one. I'm really worried about his health, Nick. I really don't know if we're going to see a whole lot of him early season.
Yeah, I personally probably would have went with Hunter Henry there. But again, Hunter Henry is a pure touchdown play. If this guy does not score a touchdown, he's going to be a disaster in your lineup. But he scored so many touchdowns last year. I don't know why they paid up big for Jonnu Smith to give Hunter Henry the ball that much, right?
Yeah. Crazy. I think they legitimately did not like what they saw in Jonnu Smith. I don't know if there was just a scheme mismatch or Smith was being really expertly used in Tennessee where they were kind of hiding his weaknesses, and those weaknesses really don't align with what New England wanted to do with him. I'm not really sure what happened there, and I don't like touchdown dependence tight end coming off of those seasons, so that's where I kind of feel about Henry there.
Yeah, Captain Spock in the chat said Tua had the 6th long ball metrics in the league last year. I like Hill's potential. I agree. I like Hill's potential as well. I just don't know if I'm as confident as I would be with a guy like Davante Adams who goes like 2 picks before. So
all right, we're now on the board here. Let's throw up the wide receiver rankings here so we can get even more on the list. We're going to be going for upside, obviously, and so a player like David Bell is someone I'm kind of interested in. Besides that, Laviska Shenault as a clear post-hype sleeper, though he's got a ton of competition. We got a lot of warts on these profiles. DJ Chark is also going to get some run in Detroit.
Yeah, well, we went with David Bell because that's the first guy I clicked on. But I like David Bell a lot, actually. Depending, now again, this also heavily hinges on if Deshaun Watson is playing.
But see, here's the deal. We're making a significantly lower, I'll say, cost investment. You know, we don't want to.
I agree.
You know, we are putting in our 12th round pick, the ceiling range of outcomes, the ceiling outcome from Watson's range of outcomes happening. That's much, much different than leveraging your entire quarterback one on that high end range of outcomes.
Yeah. So do you think if at 153, now he's not going to be available because I'm going to state this right now. If Odell is available, are you fine taking him in the 13th round? Because I think we almost would have to if he was still available at that range because of what he showed last year.
I'm down. Okay. You know,
what
was going on with the draft Deebo Samuel stuff with him tweeting about it?
Yeah, I think he's just like Odell's just bored or something. He's just tweeting out a bunch of stuff. He just recently had a kid, so maybe he was like sitting with his kid. He's like, you know what? Let's just try to stir something up here. And then he just
Yeah.
tweeted about how Debo's going to the Patriots. And then Ian Rappaport's like, this is not true. I mean, Ian Rappaport, how much credibility does that guy have anymore? Or was that Schefter, the guy who did? I don't even remember. I don't like either of them. I should be the number one beat reporter in the NFL.
I certainly don't want to do the things you need to do in order to be the number one beat reporter. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
probably
one of
not.
them had that here you go, Mr. Editor to one of the GMs or one of the
Yeah.
agents. Yeah, I remember that. Oh man, but we still need them. The NFL, the instantaneous news cycle, we're addicted to it. These receivers are not my favorite. I will tell you that. Jacoby Myers of the New England Patriots comes off the board. Odell Beckham, if case you're interested, in games where he is expected to play, I have him projected at 6 fantasy points per game, 2.5 expected usable weeks. Again, that factors in almost a 22% injury probability in any given week,
Mhm.
and about 0.5 expected elite weeks where he ends up in the top tier of all players, right? A DFS spike week that really helps us. Look, that's where Odell Beckham is at this point in his career. If you are just going to simulate a single game of football, Odell Beckham has a slight chance of breaking the slate, but it
Mhm.
is nowhere near the name brand that we're used to with him.
Yeah.
Thing is, we just saw it in the Super Bowl. Like, he was about to break that game.
Yeah, he would have went absolutely crazy. I mean, the Rams probably would have won by significantly more if he was healthy the whole game. You just have to think.
You know, he's gone now, right? So all of that conversation is for naught. That's how it goes. I still think where he was taken right at the end of the 12th, beginning of the 13th,
Mhm.
that's the right evaluation for that player. Marcus
I
Valdez
agree.
Scantling, another one who actually I have right there in my wide receiver rankings. I have them back to back right now,
Mhm.
with almost identical expected usable and expected elite outcomes here. Very different players, but Valdez Scantling, man, in DFS, get ready for some Valdez Scantling recommendations, guys, because that guy is a perfect fit with the way Patrick Mahomes plays. Maybe not going to be going off every single week, but he'll be
Yeah,
usable.
he to me he kind of feels like the guys of the past there, like Mecole Hardman, where you just play him every week and then you just hope for that one game a year where it happens. I'm not very confident in him, if I'm being honest with you. So I'm a little bit different than you, but I like Lazard a lot here. Same with Jordan Palmer.
Yeah. Or yeah, whatever. Josh or Jordan Palmer. Yeah,
Oh, his name is
they
Josh Palmer. My bad. Yeah, Josh Palmer.
third round draft capital for a team in the Chargers who I think could be one of the best in the AFC. Totally get that pick.
All right,
Uh
so we're up. You looking to go running back or receiver here?
so yeah, it's either one. Kenneth Gainwell actually is someone that I've had some. I think Gus Edwards is a player who is absolutely going to get run. He has $4 million
Mhm.
guaranteed on his contract. He is not going to get cut, even if Dobbins is back at full strength. The Awesemo projections last year were really high on Laviska Shenault. I'm not as high, so actually Gus Edwards might be a pick for me here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm done with Laviska Shenault. I think there's just so many times where I've tried to. Every year, everyone tries to talk themselves into Shenault, and maybe it's just the situation he's in, right? Maybe he's just on a team that's that bad that's willing to give Christian Kirk $7 zillion. I just don't think I can trust Laviska Shenault. Now, when you're also in the 13th, 14th round of a draft, you can't really go wrong with a guy like Laviska Shenault, right? Because you see what he can be. You can see the fact that he's going to be a guy that if you put the ball in his hands, he can do some crazy things. The question there to me is, will he get the ball in his hands a lot frequently? I don't think so. So that's kind of why I'm looking away from him. But we are kind of in a wide receiver zone where it looks gross at this point.
Hey, we got to get players with warts on their profile. I see a former 1,000-yard receiver in Robbie Anderson who wants anything but Baker Mayfield on his team.
Yeah.
Kenneth Gainwell also flashed as a 2-minute drill type back for the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, the ward on his profile is another superstar joined the roster in A.J. Brown, further limiting the amount of touches he can even get on a team that already has Miles Sanders, who they certainly want to use when
Yeah.
healthy. Cedric Wilson, kind of interesting to me. If we believe in the Miami offense and we start to look at that ceiling scenario where Tua plays better and Tyreek Hill's getting his, Cedric Wilson had some spike weeks on a very talented Cowboys roster and really doesn't have a ton of competition in the slot except for tight end Mike Gesicki, who obviously, even when he is in the slot, is using a very different route tree compared to Cedric Wilson. Probably only going to get something like a 30 to 40% snap share. Not going to play every single down, but I think it's going to be one of those players that when they are on the field, their targets per snap is going to be very, very high. And already shown me gigantic spike weeks on strong offenses. I'm kind of interested in Jahan Dotson is another player with the draft capital. Absolutely fine taking him. Who knows who Carson Wentz's favorite receiver is?
Yeah, let's go with Jahan Dotson. If I'm being honest with you,
Fun.
I
Okay.
want to take Jarvis Landry, but since we don't know what team he's going to be on, can't do that. And I also do like Cedric Wilson a ton. Like you said, in Dallas, when these guys are hurt on the team, he really showed out. He is the clear number 3 guy there. I don't think the Dolphins are going to be one of the most pass heavy teams in the NFL. Dallas definitely passes the ball will be, in my opinion, passing the ball at a much higher clip last year compared to what the Dolphins will be doing this year. But I think that Cedric Wilson is a guy that is going to be, you shouldn't be surprised, right, when he has 2 crazy games this year, right? I wouldn't be.
Yeah. And you know, obviously, but I do feel like in terms of expected ceiling and upside, we were looking at that final running back play. If we had not taken Gus Edwards, Ronald Jones would have also fit the bill there. I think that 14.7 pick there was very, very solid. Matt Ryan and Daniel Jones, again, this is the quarterback zone I'd rather not be a part of. Not consistently, at least. I don't mind mixing and matching my exposures throughout the best ball season. And then after that, it gets really, really dicey. Donovan Peoples-Jones, definitely on my radar at this point. Another player who maybe I'm a little bit higher on than some is going to be George Pickens, just because of the Steelers' consistent ability. He's gone already. Consistent ability to nail it with mid-round picks. Yeah, I don't want him before like the 12th or 13th round. So
Yeah, did you see the video of him getting drafted? Where he's just standing there staring at the screen? It was like kind of scary.
I missed that. No.
No, it's pretty funny. So a lot of people in this draft only have one quarterback, or not a lot of people, I guess, just these 2.
Yeah,
But that's
let's
pretty
actually with 9 picks to go till our next one. Let's go to the draft board over on the right hand side if you want to click that, and let's just see what this looks like. If you want to scroll down for our users, just the general feel of how this draft has gone. Yeah, you see that big tight end run in round 12. Happy to not be a part of it.
Yeah, there was a quarterback run earlier, I believe, as well.
Actually, we kind of started that run in the 11th. If you look at it, we take Albert O, and there's a little bit of a mini wide receiver run, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god, I need a tight end."
Yeah. Now, in you know what, someone I wanted to bring up, I was like, oh, maybe we can draft Russell Gage in the 15th round. He's on Tampa Bay. We have Tom Brady. What type of crazy motherfuckers drafting Russell Gage in the 11th round?
Hey, look, the bottom line is it's an accessible Tom Brady stack. They obviously don't have
Yeah.
Tom Brady, but it's also, you look at that wide receiver roster, Nick. Gage is walking into a ton of targets as that wide receiver 3. He is going to play a lot. And the bottom line is there are going to be plays where Godwin and Evans are covered and somebody else is wide open. We still don't know if Gronkowski is coming back. I still assume he is, but no definitive guarantee.
Yeah. Flett in the chat brought up about Kendrick Bourne. You like Kendrick Bourne or no? I thought Kendrick Bourne was very interesting last year. I was surprised how well he played last year.
Kendrick Bourne. That's a pretty solid play. I actually have him up at 2 expected usable weeks. The only thing that is a award on his profile in terms of expected elite weeks, the offense he plays on really brings him down. So he's at under a half expected elite weeks. Again, we're talking about the top 10% of all flex plays when we mean elite weeks, because those are the ones that really bring your tournament team to the top of the leaderboard. Donovan Peoples-Jones is again, kind of leaning on the possibility of the Browns passing offense being much improved with our mid-round picks. Not opposed to Kendrick Bourne. Curtis Samuel also with a similar median projection to those players we're talking about.
Yeah. You know, let's go with DPJ because we already have the other Cleveland receiver. So let's just go with this Cleveland upside. Despite the fact that we don't even have Watson, I think that's still a fine play. I like Kendrick Bourne too, though. I don't want to dismiss him. I think that they're going to actually let Mac Jones kind of play a little bit different this year because last year it seemed like the game plan was just don't mess this up, Mac, and we're going to win the game. Whereas I think now in 2022, it's going to be Mac, maybe cook it up a little bit, don't just, I don't know. Mac Jones to me, like he should not have made the Pro Bowl last year, but he wasn't terrible. Like I like to make fun of him because he's on the Patriots, but he's a solid player.
I agree. I agree. His ability to turn a drive into a touchdown was below average. His defense was really what helped him stay in games. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just haven't seen enough personally to say that he is an above average quarterback and can be for a long time in the league. Wrong, Patriots fans. Obviously, you guys were in the playoffs last year. I might eat my words, but not a player I'm really focusing on this best ball season. Not opposed to it if I'm stacking him up, but not an offense I need to get to.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not focusing on him either. But the fact that he's in the 16th round right now, I mean, to me, like if we didn't draft 2 quarterbacks already, he'd be a guy that'd be smashing right here in my book.
I know it's a probably suboptimal move. Yeah, let's check on the running back and tight end position as well before we just zero in on wide receiver, our most likely position. Malik Willis, too much floor, too much downside. Sit on the clock. Trey McBride is not where I'm going. It's wide receiver for me. Where else are you looking at wide out?
Yeah, I'd be thinking either Nico Collins or Kendrick Bourne. I like Nico Collins a ton last year. I think that this year he's going to get a little more run.
It's Bourne over him from by a mile for me.
Okay, that's fine with me as well. I would have done the same thing, but I just think Nico Collins is an interesting player. I took him a lot last year, and I think if Davis Mills really does improve, I mean, they don't have that many options in Houston, right? So I think,
you know what? It's a little closer than I thought. They're in the same tier for a reason. This is the thing about mid-round draft capital. I need more information than a third-round pick at a certain point. I'm fine almost betting on third-round rookies more than I am on third-year second players because on a Texans team where he got run or he had the opportunity to get run, he didn't earn that consistent opportunity. I think the upside is still there, but I think the probability of it hitting a ceiling is lower than well lower than it was last year, as weird as it sounds.
Yeah, so we brought up Malik Willis, or you did actually. Do you think that Malik Willis is even draftable? Because I don't even think he's going to get any run at all this year. I think this is like a draft Malik Willis. Next year, you get to see Malik Willis type of deal, right?
Yeah. I can understand. Exactly. I can understand Ryan Tannehill at 29 million. There's just no way, unless you're looking at injury probabilities, that you can say Malik Willis is going to get any play. But it's sort of like the Trey Lance pick from last year with slightly different draft capital. Right now, I've got Malik Willis as in games that he's playing. He could 0.5 expected elite weeks. Then, one of the things I can look at too is Tannehill's injury probability, because he's lowered his rushing, sits at just 15 in any given week when we simulate it out, just a 15% chance that he won't finish the game. Again, it's not the most robust injury model, but it's at least giving us a snapshot of what their injury likelihood is. It's pretty low even for a quarterback.
Gotcha.
It's hard to tell you.
Oh, sorry. What are your thoughts here on Gronk? Because it's the 17th round. We already have Kittle, I understand, but to me, if Gronk plays, he's a top 5 tight end. So would you have any thoughts about taking Gronk?
Let's look at the draft board.
Roster construction, I wouldn't do it, but
I'm not opposed. I'm actually not opposed at all. Second to last round, we are, here's the deal. We're expecting 0.5 to 1 usable week per player in. Do you get what I'm saying here? So out of 17 games, the expected usability of this player at this point is 0.5 games. So pick whoever you want. We got a little stack here. Gronk, if he comes back, you know exactly the situation he'll be in. I'm in.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very in on Gronk. I've drafted so much Gronk. It might be a swing and a miss, right, if he doesn't play. I also think a very interesting last pick is also Antonio Brown, but maybe I'm a little higher on him because I think he will just be back.
I think we're about to get sniped here. I think I got too excited, but AB is a no way for me. No
Okay,
way.
well, Epic Daddy better not take this guy.
I think
A
he's
name like
going.
Epic Daddy, he's got to take Gronk though. That might be Gronk himself. Okay, he didn't.
Did he just take a fourth quarterback?
Yeah, people are crazy in here, so we're getting Gronk, and then I think our best spot here is probably to go wide receiver again, assuming our running backs are healthy.
Yeah. Scroll up just a little bit on the roster there for me, Nick. On the right hand side, overall roster construction, very very common for my roster construction this year. I'm going to take 3 or 4 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, or 2 tight ends, depending on the draft capital. 3 of the other one, and then just load out on wide receivers. In fact, I'm a little sad that we don't have 10 wide receivers. That's how I feel, because it's not that I have any more information about these players, especially at the end of the draft, than other players do. I just need more lottery tickets.
Yeah, I'm thinking we probably do end up with 10 receivers if we didn't take Gronk right there.
KJ Hamler is a player that I could get behind, especially with Russell Wilson throwing to him. I know KJ Hamler has not stayed healthy, but he's got second round draft capital. And
I was about to bring up Lavichka, and he got taken.
Yeah. I actually like Hamler's situation better as we head into the season. Somebody is going to play a significant role on the inside for that team. People are assuming Tim Patrick has earned his spot. That's probably the most likely to get that number 3 role. But I think they're going to have plenty of 4 wide receiver sets. I think they're going to mix and match things, and we haven't exactly seen Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton be able to stay healthy for an entire season very often.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know, man. When we get to the 18th round, I think really you can make an argument about anyone, right?
Yeah, but it's even some synergy with Albert O. Right now, we're connecting ourselves to a Russell Wilson offense, and who knows what the wide receiver room looks like week 16, week 17 when we're playing, hopefully for $1 million. There's Malik Willis as a last round pick.
I think we're gonna go. Sorry about talking over you. I think we're gonna go Hamler here if he's available. I think he's the pick. Only having 1 tight end's a little crazy.
That's legitimately insane.
I mean,
he's got
tight ends who are available here. Just look like Trey McBride, Dan Arnold, Gerald Everett. Like none of these guys. I mean, Troutman. Why is Troutman falling so much? That's something I don't understand. Troutman is pretty good, unless people just assume Taysom Hill is going to be in for every snap.
Yeah, he takes McBride there. Yep. So Hamler is the play for me as our final round pick. McBride I have as 0.1 expected usable weeks right now. Probably Troutman I have at 1.5. So he definitely would have been the pick for me there. Buddy, right. Is that it?
Yeah, I think we should recap the picks at the end. So I'll just wait till the draft ends, then we can see it like on the bigger screen. Like it's a better look of our team. So real quick, give you guys a quick word from our sponsor. I got this. I remembered to do it. Our sponsor, UnderDog Fantasy. You just watched us do a whole draft on here. Is known for their NFL best ball tournaments, but it doesn't stop there. UnderDog has plenty of other contests for you guys to play in. If you like the MLB, you like the NBA playoffs are going on right now. They even have NHL contests as well that you guys can go ahead and do. And if you play in a state that allows the pick'ems are great as well. You can net up to 20 times your entry fee. If you want to sign up for this, please use promo code Awesemo. AWESEMO. It's on the screen somewhere. And you get a first match deposit bonus of up to a $100. So make sure that you guys do use that. We're going to be doing tons of these every Monday, I'm pretty sure is our plan here. So every Monday we'll be on here. You can even draft with us. And I think this is going to be a very fun exercise. And like I said off the rip, this is something that I do very heavily to try to prepare for my actual fantasy drafts. The best ball draft strategy is slightly different, but you can get a real vibe as to where players are going to kind of be going. And I think that's very helpful. And it does really help hone your draft strategy in.
100%. There are definitely differences between drafting for best ball versus season long, which we're going to get into all season and off season long. And there are even differences between drafting a 12-team best ball league where you're just trying to beat 11 other players versus a giant tournament like this, where in the final round, you'll have to be over 400 players and then go through a series of tiers. So it's about not just having the best lineup, but a differentiated lineup as well. With that said, it is incredibly important for us not to worry too much about the projected score that we're about to see compared to other players. Guys, please do not worry. The projections from UnderDog horrible by any stretch, no, but they are median projections, and we just drafted based on ceiling. Expected elite weeks is what we were chasing here. We may not have the highest median score, and that's all right.
Yeah, that's how I look at it as well. It's the same thing when you draft on NFL, ESPN. They might tell you you're going to come in last place and you can win. So yeah, I wouldn't really get so super pissed if your projections were low. So let's just recap our team real quick. I'll just name off all the players and then we can kind of talk about anyone if you want to talk about them. So our quarterbacks, we got Trey Lance and Tom Brady. At running backs, we went with 4, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers, and Gus Bus Edwards. At receiver, we have Hollywood Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Rondell Moore, Kadarius Toney, David Bell, Jahan Dotson, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kendrick Bourne, and KJ Hamler. And our tight ends are George Kittle, Albert O. I've got to learn how to pronounce his last name because now he's very prominent for fantasy. And then Mr. Rob Gronkowski. So anything you wanted to hit on here before we head out?
This is the least you've ever had to pay for a Brady Gronk stack. That's very fun. I absolutely love the early running back draft strategy. And then, 3 running backs and chill is awesome. I'll even do 4. I think two is a little nuts, but especially when we're looking at all of those first 3 running backs, a ton of expected opportunity and not a whole lot of years on those top for any of those players, all second and third year players. Obviously, there's injury probability, injury history for some of them, but I do like drafting younger running backs who could be coming into their prime and underrated because of it. We kind of did the same thing at the wide receiver position as well. A ton of youth at the wide out position because we missed a lot of those stalwart stars at the top of the draft when we were going for running back. Trey Lance is the pick that scares me the most, but also when we look back and we're like, oh, how did this win $1 million? It's probably because of one of our quarterbacks here. Have to take a shot in a draft like this. And I really like the Lance, Ayuk, Kittle stack that we were able to get to here. And then we're going to have some games where we run it back with Cam Akers on the other side. Think of that from a DFS perspective. That's a fun little core that you could see winning in any given DFS week. That's all we're going for.
Yeah. And then also to bring up Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is one of the more interesting late round guys because like you said, they paid him the money. He's going to get the run. He's not going to get cut. And there are going to be weeks where he just scores 2 touchdowns in my book, right? There's at least going to be one week where Lamar doesn't run it in. J.K. Dobbins doesn't get it. Gus Edwards gets it. Everyone on Twitter's pissed off because J.K. Dobbins didn't score. I think that's going to happen. So I like Gus Edwards.
They are one of the most creative running teams in the league. And when you have Jackson and Dobbins going one direction, Edwards going the other is sometimes the best call. Nick, this has been incredibly fun. Therapeutic almost to finally get that out of my system. The first Best Ball Mania 3 draft of this season. If you had to say your favorite player we've got, name one.
Oh, my favorite player has to be Hollywood Brown. I just feel as though my thoughts on him are it's just so interesting to see what's going to happen. Now, maybe we are just completely off on this, right? And maybe he isn't as good as I think he could be, but in a system where he's going to be the number 1 guy with Kyler Murray, with a team that believes in him. It seemed like Hollywood Brown was just pissed at the offensive coordinators, like the scheme there. So the scheme in Arizona's got to be there for him. I think that Hollywood Brown's probably our most interesting pick, aside from Rob Gronkowski, who I think could be just the biggest smash pick because if he plays, he's a top 5, maybe even a top 3 tight end in my book.
That was my pick. I just the late Gronk. It could come back to bite us, of course, but that was my favorite. This has been so much fun, Nick. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. I am Matt Savoca at Draftaholic. We are brought to you, of course, by UnderDog Fantasy. Use promo code Awesemo to get that first match deposit bonus. As you said, Nick, we are back every single Monday for Mock Draft Mondays as we continue through the NFL offseason. Until next time, I'm Matt Savoca for Nick. We'll see you guys later.